Well, everyone, our Lord and Savior Gabe is making news again. So imagine this. You run a free-to-play game. 5% of your users are buying things regularly. 0.5% of them are buying even more things. Like, of course, those multi-$100 League of Legends skins that you buy to flex on those goddamn purrs. But, there's a problem, right, if you're running this free-to-play game. What about the other 95% of people? I mean, sure, they can be bots in your West world to make it feel alive for the people who are spending money, but what if you sell them targeted ads and make way more money? Loads of games do, mostly, of course, in mobile. Game ads are estimated to be a $100 billion market in 2025, but most of the games that we play don't really do that. Yet! Which is why today's story actually does matter. I mean, you know where it's going. We're going to talk about the Steam thing. Turns out the Steam thing is not what was initially reported, so, you'll get value there. But loads of pretty legit games are considering ads. RuneScape is one of them, right? We covered that, and even in Jagex's responses to the whole drama, they said they're still considering ad-supported stuff. To go a bit bigger, Electronic Arts, and the absolute mensch, the weaver of corporate sloppy bullshit, Andrew Wilson, CEO. He responded to investment analysts and he said that for ads, they've got people looking into it. Because of course he would say that. He's talking to analysts who work for firms. It's all about investment. And what do the investors want? They want the revenue to go up. They want profitability to go up. Therefore, they will want ads. So even if Andrew Wilson himself personally is actually one of us in the inside, doesn't really want ads, he's got serious financial pressure, and some would even say responsibility, to action on those ads. And it's in that context that all of this reporting on Steam went down, right? Now, Steam is PC. PC is growing, Steam is growing with it. If you cannot do something on Steam, you are in trouble as a game. That means that Valve's policies matter to our industry. They matter basically because they shape the possibility space. And as this Amazon executive noted as well, even with their, 250x the resources, whatever, you can't dethrone Steam. Valve actually matter, so let's investigate what's happened. I've also got a truly novel experience to share. It's Boot Dev who have sponsored today's video. You see, there you can learn the coding, engineering, and career skills to break into back-end web development. It's like an average salary of 100 grand, work from home, and a lot of really sick stuff, but with quite the twist because their founder is a massive gamer, and that's why Boot is different. It's an RPG. Quests, levels, XP, boss battles, real-time leaderboards, and an active Discord community, almost, I guess, like having your programmer MMO guild. It's really cool. And when you're learning a new skill, that kind of thing matters. And the skills you'll be learning are back-end web development using Python and Go across a wealth of content that cover the fundamentals and even deeper learning topics like really getting into algorithms, which, by the way, is real fun. You'll build projects for your portfolio, and you'll dodge two massive problems. One, tutorial hell. Where you just bounce from place to place randomly in the internet without a cohesive path. And two, get rich quick style bootcamp hell. Because Boot is actually realistic. It's got the sauce. You can see that through their UI, their vibes, how they've structured everything, and they're just plain better than the rest. And you can find that out for yourself with 25% off your first purchase at boot.dev/Bellular News. It's no risk. You can browse their content, do demos, and a lot more for free. And when you do buy, it's a 30-day money-back guarantee. So Steam has essentially reorganized their back-end documentation. They've taken advertisement rules and they have moved them into their own section and just given them a more prominent position. And contrary to loads of headlines, this is not a new policy, and it is not Valve outright banning advertisements. Though, you could say that because these rules are now being displayed more prominently, maybe that indicates Valve are going to be more willing to actually enforce them. Now, the guidelines themselves are crystal clear, but of course, there's the specific wording, there is then the spirit of a policy, and then there's what actually happens. Now, the guidelines are no gating gameplay behind ad walls, no rewarding players for watching advertisements, and no abusing Steam platform features like bundles or store page shoutouts to make money. As an example, imagine I'm a developer, I've got a decently successful game, some other publisher wants, a stronger launch for their game. I say to them, hey, I'll give you 10 grand and I'll also, I'll give you a shout out on our Steam page. Valve don't want people doing that, which obviously does make sense. That would be you circumventing Steam's discovery algorithm and selling space on your Steam page, which basically would be you selling ad inventory on their storefront while cutting them out of the deal. Which, not really the dumb thing. Now, the documentation suggests that developers, if they don't want to do ads, that they either use Steam's built-in monetization options or just, go and do DLC. Now, this is good, obviously good. Nobody wants an App Store hellscape where you watch an advert to continue your Vampire Survivors run. That would suck. It actually makes the design of games worse, and it sets up loads of awful incentives. And it only flies in mobile because people are not only used to that model, they're also literally trained to not buy premium apps, which means that if you want to be viable, well, if you can't beat him, join him, even if it is a game like Vampire Survivors, which can let you watch an ad to continue. Now, for today's story, we gotta handle the specifics, because as I alluded to, Steam simply moved documentation. This is people noticing a documentation move, not really a breaking news story, unless Valve actually does start to enforce things. And as we're going to get into, there's some things that really do stretch credulity. And that's because it's not a ban against all forms of advertising. It's a policy about what type of advertising is okay. Because, make no mistake, Steam does have approved advertising. And now we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about how companies may be bending the spirit of the law. Steam's actual stance in advertising is far more permissive than most people know, and it's in 3 distinct areas, right? And this defines what you will see in Steam, so let's break down each of them. First, on the storefront, Steam does allow for cross-promotions and bundles without monetary exchange. So you cannot basically sell advertising on your store page, but you can do a deal with another publisher, another developer, to bundle your games together, right? And this is very commonly done. As an example, let's just say there's a game like Frostpunk. Now, let's say you have a game that would appeal to a lot of Frostpunk players. Maybe there's a good relationship between your publishers, so in that case, maybe there would be a joint deal. People would be able to pick up Frostpunk as a part of a bundle that would also include your game, and that would be a win-win for both developers. But the important bit is the financial upside on both sides is through Steam's pipeline and not via a sale that cuts Steam out of the process. Which, by the way, I mean, that almost sounds like it's Valve trying to, do skullduggery. No, that's completely reasonable and fair from Valve's part. And obviously where paid advertising is totally okay is when it's outside of Steam. Obviously, Valve would be mad to say no to external traffic. That's off Steam. But what about on Steam inside games? Steam's position on in-game advertising essentially boils down to make it feel part of the game, don't make it be interruptive. Their policies explicitly permit real brands and real products in games, and their examples are things like sponsors in racing and sports games, characters wearing real brands in skating games, which totally makes sense. But the policy as written actually does need permission from the brands, right? And that's kind of neat. It's not just about ads, it's about brands being there. And that's obviously, I think, a smart way for Valve to protect themselves against, say, an angry brand seeing themselves in a controversial game. Because look, Steam's not going to check, and a developer's probably not going to ask for permission. But the point basically is Valve has the bit of paper that they can point to saying, well, the developer tacitly said that they did have permission. They broke our rule. But where it gets more, I'm going to say spiritually gray, because, games are art, is integrated advertising in other sorts of games. Being in a sports game is fine, but this policy does mean, as an example, that the Final Fantasy XV Cup Noodle brand promotion, which involved an in-game cup noodle quest, that's completely fine. Now, what would not be fine per Valve's rules is an unskippable cup noodle advert in Final Fantasy XV, say, that would be needed to unlock that quest, or would be as you load from one zone to another. That's kind of the point here. Gray areas can be found, and today I have got clear and direct examples of big games that get away with breaking the spirit of the policy. Because here's the thing, what is the difference between an unskippable ad and a game's camera looking at something that is a paid brand placement for an extended period of time? What is the difference? I'm not really sure. What we're seeing is that full games are testing what they can get away with, and there are 2 particularly interesting cases that did violate the letter of Valve's law. NBA 2K had unskippable ads during TV-style segments, and Assassin's Creed Odyssey had a little bit of a whoopsie with a full-screen store promotion appearing mid-gameplay, where technically to continue gameplay, you need to move past that ad. Now, these were in both cases clear mistakes of things firing off when they weren't supposed to. I will be charitable, but certainly there's going to be a lot of people who will think, are they just trying to nudge the Overton window a little bit more to get like more in-game advertising things okay? I mean, in the case of NBA 2K from Take-Two Interactive, I bloody well think so. Anyway, that NBA story happened in 2020, which was the same year that Steam introduced this ad policy. That being said, we cannot establish a causal link between those events, though it does raise a bit of an eyebrow. More importantly, though, is that both games are now on Steam, living happily today with their forms of, promoting their own things in-game. And it does show us where the line is, that things have to be diegetic and skippable, but defined in a rather narrow and mechanical way. If they're technically not disruptive, even if you, of course, find them to be an immersion-breaking disruption, it's fine. Now, these are just the tip of the iceberg, and oddly enough, we've got Hideo Kojima to thank for this fun thing. What you're looking at is, of course, a lingering shot of Monster Energy cans in Death Stranding. And hey, I do like some Boomer Juice, a wee Monster Ultra, very good to get you going in the morning, but does the camera lingering on a shot of paid product placement constitute an unskippable ad, right? I mean, imagine, I happen to have a Dr. Pepper here, okay? Not paid by Dr. Pepper. Now, imagine that to continue watching this video, I just held this Dr. Pepper up in front of my face for like 30 seconds, and that I had received money for this, right? That would be a bit of an unskippable ad, right? I mean, yes, you could fast forward, but I think you get my point. That would be weird. That wouldn't be paid product placement. Like, let's just say, imagine I'm one of those guys who does a podcast and has an energy drink, and my energy drink's sitting here. That would be different, right? And that's kind of troublesome in Death Stranding, because there's actually way more product placement in it as well, like sunglasses, clothes, and a Norman Reedus TV show. Like, not a little in-universe Sam Bridges thing. No, a literal TV show that Norman Reedus, the dude, was in by AMC, sort of promoted in Death Stranding. Now, I'm not doing this to bash Kojima. Like, dude cooks up some real wacky cool shit. I'm totally down for that. But the point is, we should think about this. And yes, Mr. Kojima could totally get away with it because, well, he's kind of got that following, right? And if he does the Monster Energy promo, it feels a little different to say Andrew Wilson of Electronic Arts, if he was to do similar, and we were to see what I think is the next stage of in-game monetization. So make no mistake, games will want to implement everything that they can. You've just seen with product placement a gray area that can feel like an unskippable ad and certainly an immersion-breaking ad that is totally okay and normal in a full-priced paid game. More is going to happen. Let's go back to Andrew Wilson and EA. To avoid being caught in the midwit trap of only reacting to headlines, we should first think about the first principles here. Advertising is one of the cheapest ways that a developer can make more money. Video games take years to make. Content DLC takes whole teams, so do cosmetics. Of course, we've generally seen less and less full DLCs, more and more cosmetics because of money, right? The cost of revenue. Now, 500 gems or a revive in return for one 30-second advertisement, that costs just about nothing to implement, and it is surfaced to the player right at their pain point, right when they want that revive or those 500 gems. Steam banning that is absolutely a good thing, but advertising within games is still fine, because there is a difference between the word of the law and the spirit of the law. Be it politics, be it games, we should think about that. Now, Andrew Wilson of Electronic Arts was mentioned in the intro of today's video, and I did that for a reason. Now, the man has got a knack for corporate speak. I mean, he actually called future game content, this is a quote, future innovation creativity. I don't know about you, my fellow gamers, I do like to consume some future innovation creativity. Anyway, he talked about the need to do advertisements thoughtfully in their big titles. And I think that's obviously him giving a wink to everyone saying, I know that if we cock this up, you'd be very angry. But it is quite funny because he says that over history, right, they have had to be, quote, very, very thoughtful about advertising in the context of our play experiences, which is great. But his very next line opens with the word but. Wilson then emphasizes the billions of hours that are spent on Electronic Arts' games, and he says that they expect advertising to be a meaningful growth driver for them, and that they do have people working on it. And if you're wondering then, what does that mean? Does that mean unskippable ads? Well, I would say there's a real good example actually, and it's on Discord. which we all use, right? You'll see those sponsored quests that appear at the bottom of your sidebar. You'll do some sort of optional ad thing and you'll get a cosmetic in return. And you see, this is all about psychology. It's all about framing, choice architecture, that kind of thing. Discord does ads in a way that is designed to not feel like an ad, or is at least designed to feel a little bit more like a game, because it's Discord, it's for gamers. If you're going to do an ad, make it feel like it's a Discord ad. An effort has went in. People will then accept it more. Obviously, though, Discord is free, so it's more than okay for them to do that. But a AAA doing that kind of thing would be awful, and I think it will happen. Sony giving me a free skin for linking my account is kind of perfectly fine. And yeah, we've got things in the past like double XP coupons from your junk food, right? Buy your Totino's pizza roll, gamers. Live up to the stereotype. And that's something that goes from the outside world into the video game world. But what about it going the other way round, where you maybe have an incentivized in-game store link that takes you to a store page to purchase something via an ad? And then if it validates your purchase, you get a reward in the game. So be it that or an encroachment of paid product placement, obviously in a way that goes way beyond a brand collab, we're going to see more of this. But to understand how and who benefits, we got to think about Valve and if they would ever get a cut. Because at the end of the day, what will define their store policy is what they will benefit from. So Steam, the consumer thing that we use, and Steamworks, the set of developer tools, have many things. But they don't have an ad platform, right? They don't have an ad platform. And when we see brand promotions, those are often very bespoke deals, B2B, right? But let's run the clock forward and have a bit of an understanding of things. So I want you to consider this. Major game players partner with or develop their own advertisement networks. That then lets brands purchase ad inventory across their video games, just like those brands already do on Facebook and YouTube. Right? That is how the majority of the advertising business goes these days. Now, if that happens in a game, Valve would not see any money from that. So imagine you have your Discord-style quests, but it's something that you get an XP boost for in a new Call of Duty game, right? Where maybe in the Call of Duty store, every single day, there's a brand partner quest. You can click on that brand partner quest, and maybe the case is those are distributed to players based on your own player profile, right? Because it would be targeted advertising, which they could obviously do. You have a Call of Duty account, they know lots about you, they know where you're from, where you're playing, etc., etc. That would be absolutely humongous business. And trust me, I know how this business works, given, you know, YouTube as a whole thing. Now, in a world where Steamworks Ads exists, well, that is something that Valve could build and the developers could use. That would make everybody a lot of money. Just like, say, you've got Unity, the game engine, and for a very long time, Unity, the game engine that would be used to make video games that you or I would really enjoy playing, was kind of losing money in all of that. And what they were making money on was mobile games that were using the Unity ad network. Obviously, that led to quite a few messy incentives and, well, at the very least, a lot of videos for us. But to the big players, this is an opportunity for transformational growth. In a recent video where we discussed the rumors of GTA, the new one, costing $100, one of the things that we found in the research process was that consumer spending on like premium console games was actually, in real terms, flat. Now, obviously, we're buying lots of other things, but if you buy another thing that's not a video game, the video games industry doesn't benefit from that. If, however, you are putting your time and your attention into a video game, and then you are watching advertisements, be that for a new wallet, a new phone, whatever it may be that you might want, well, now the games industry can benefit from that. And they will try everything that they can. Remember the money-making schemes like the NFT games, right? It wasn't just some weird Web3 crypto bros doing that. There was a lot of them, but it was also EA. They talked to investors about, oh, we're investigating this, we're taking it very seriously. Ubisoft did as well. Ubisoft got further than most. Square Enix had quite a few lolcow moments with their NFTs. Now, some of that is because of investor pressure, what investors would want. Whenever Andrew Wilson says, we're very thoughtful, but it's a lot of money, we got people looking into it, he is saying that because that's what investors will want to hear. There is pressure to make that work from the investors, just as there is pressure to make AI work, and of course pressure in the past to make the NFTs work. Of course, for Valve though, that would be a bit of a problem, and Valve did indeed block the NFT games. That's because, number one, I think they were smart. They knew that was not going to go down well, and Valve doing that was absolutely a consumer good. Now, in one way, you could say it's anti-competitive because a storefront basically helped murder the adoption of a really bad trend. And you could say that in the most free version of a market, the NFT games would happen, and they would just fail because we all thought they were lame. But still, we ended up not going through that because Valve was the 500-ton gorilla and it said, no, we're not doing that. And that was good for us, but there is another reason. They wouldn't be making any money from that, right? It would be circumventing Steam's current monetization features. They would far rather have a system like, say, Rust, where you've got an in-game player marketplace and it's using Steam. I mean, think about CSGO knives. Some of those knives are just really boring commodities, but some knives, wow, they generate in a way that can look very unique. One would almost say actually unique. Who really knows about the fungibility, but effectively an NFT, and you can see those having massive trading volume in terms of quantity and revenue on their marketplace. And to be clear, I am not saying this to say that Valve is evil and is pursuing money. No, it's a goddamn business. Of course it's doing that, right? That's fine. And the best way for me and you and Valve to be happy is actually for our incentives to be aligned. If Valve's profit motive is aligned with our desire for good video games, then it's going to be happy and sustainable. And because Valve is a platform and a storefront that captures broad market growth, they're going to care about the biggest of the big picture. And that means the developers putting in mobile game unskippable ads, that would be bad for the state of Valve's overall market. They would stand to lose. It would be bad for us. We don't want that in our games. That would be bad for Valve, and it would be generating money on Valve's platform without giving Valve a cut, which would be bad, and that would mean that our incentives would not be aligned. That means my incentives, your incentives, Valve's, and the developer publishers. And so in this case, the alignment of incentives is good. But if Valve ever decides to do a Valve ad network, like, say, Google AdWords, then the incentives would be different. I hope, and I do actually believe, that Valve just does not have an interest in going in that direction. What I will say is watch out. Doubling down on premium, be that premium, gacha bullshit cosmetics as Riot are doing, is happening right now. Okay? That's pressing up the really premium stuff. But there's all the gains at the bottom. Right? All the gains that will come from ads, that will come from paid product placement. We have seen in AAA games that actually unit economics are becoming a real problem, and these games that are expensive to make are struggling to earn back money and to be worth the squeeze. And that means they're going to find every bit of low-hanging fruit that they can to de-risk. What Valve banned 5 years ago is good. That they have now made that more prominent in the documentation is good because it does suggest they're more willing to enforce it. And that means today's story is a win, but as I laid out, we should be vigilant, we should think, and we should always try to think in terms of those first principles. What are the basic economics and what are the incentives of the individual decision makers, be that the corporate entities or even just the people at the top, like Mr. Wilson, who has got to say things that investors will like, and investors like ads. And if you'll excuse the joke, YouTube actually wants to show you a few more. They've currently got snipers pointed at me, so I literally have to say you should watch this video about Overwatch 2 next so that they can show you ads, but also it's actually a really interesting video and I don't want YouTube snipers to get me, so please help.